So then it gets into the Masonic thing for me personally. That was the first thing that I thought of, because we know how that stuff goes. I don't know if David was a Mason. I know I've seen photos of some of his friends, some of his questionable friends, that are going in that route now. A lot of strange things happened after David died that just raised a lot of more questions.
Well,
right after David died, his brother starts a GoFundMe account for Kamel's mom. Kamel's mom has cancer. He starts a GoFundMe account to raise $30 million or $60 million, some crazy, $6 million, whatever. Kamel's family doesn't know about it. When they find out, they tell him, shut that thing down. He raises $8,000. And from what he said, I guess he gave it back to them. But just him doing that just made no sense. That's one thing. I got contacted by one of these friends, and he told me to stop asking questions, that this is not a road that I wanted to go down, and if I did, then I was going to have the Department of Homeland Security and the feds looking at me, just for looking at this. I think it was just trying to scare me.
Well, then why would they be involved? And who was the caller that did this? Who was the caller that did that?
This was a guy named Sean Wright. Sean
Wright, got it. Okay.
Yeah, now I had met Sean Wright. I never met him personally, but I had, he was a part of the We Are Change. And so somehow, we started talking. We chatted a couple times, but really we had maybe chatted 2 or 3 times before he called me and is telling me this. And I'm just like, okay, well, show me what proves David Crowley is guilty. And he's like, I can't show you. And I'm like, well, if you can't show me, then, why would I just think that David Crowley's guilty? And he's like, just trust me. And when somebody says, just trust me, man, that's my trigger. That's my trigger right there.
Well, no, that's a lie.
Yes, exactly.
They're saying, I've got the info, you don't need it, be quiet.
Pretty much. He was trying to contact David, and because David was also working, not only was he working on a fictional movie called Gray State, he was working on a documentary that would also coincide with this project. Sean Wright was part of that process.
Was David part of We Are Change?
David was not part of We Are Change. And around October, maybe even earlier, before he dies, he starts to distance himself from the same cast of characters. Now, they'll say that he distanced himself from them because he was going into a dark place, because he was planning this killing. He was planning on killing his wife, himself, and his daughter.
No, I think that wouldn't happen. If you're wanting to, no, he wouldn't do that. He's an intelligent Christian man, and I think that if you want to kill your people, you don't give any triggers to show that you're going to do anything. He would just do it if that was really what his problem was. And I don't think he was unstable like that to do that. I think he saw, or in his investigations, I think he found something, or there's an indication of something that had him going, no, I'm not going down that path, and caused him to distance himself. And these are people that are working on this project with him, right?
They're involved in it. Okay, so Sean Wright posted his phone number trying to reach David. He's desperately trying to reach David on Facebook. This is the same guy that, yes, on December 9th. Now, this is the same guy who said that he was David's right-hand man. If he's David's right-hand man,
Mr. Wright was part of it, right-hand, okay.
Yeah. So if he's so close with David, David should already have his number, but for some reason, Sean Wright posts his phone number in a comment section on Facebook that is public. That post, after David dies, that post is taken down. It's gone. Now, Sean Wright wanted to make sure that David cut things out of his film, because those things would send Sean Wright to prison because he didn't pay his taxes. Sean Wright did end up having to pay tax. He didn't go to prison, but he did have to pay fines because he didn't pay his taxes.
Oh, okay. That's interesting.
It's a weird thing. It's a spider web. So I'm just trying to find out who the spider is, you know.
Sean Wright seems he was really tight in the mix, and he's the one that warned you. That that's a double-edged sword, and it brings up the thing that I told people back in We Are Change and the meetings that we had. Believe me, if we get into this, there will be trouble. Sean Wright seems to represent that trouble, and maybe he was a plant on Mr. Crowley's little system and wanted to, you know, end the production, so to speak, to keep it from airing. I don't know. But is Sean Wright that? Or is Sean Wright one of the representatives of those who wanted to shut it down? Maybe Homeland Security. There's a lot of people in government that doesn't want some of this stuff that we dig into or talk about produced or put out there for certain reasons. Maybe it's who it's connected to. Generally, that's the big one. Who, what, when, and where. And other reasons being that there are those who are in prominent positions who don't want to lose their power, too. Not so much money or anything like that, and they don't want to go to prison or end up on the case of being executed themselves. So the issue is, you know, was this a government action? And like I said before, Congress can authorize certain ones to take government actions, and there's a handbook that goes with that, and there's a way and a protocol that goes with that, and there's some expectations that go with that. And when these things are executed, it is with impunity. The person doing it goes away or is taken care of in such a way as to not be indicted in any way for the matter, but to make it look like anybody else or a suicide. That gives them the ability to step away. And it almost sounds like this now. Now, that's just me throwing off an ad cuff, so to speak.
Right.
You know, that sometimes it's Occam's razor, keeping it simple instead of complex. Somebody liked his movie, who was working on it, passed on his other data to other deals, and they're saying, hey, we can't produce this because he's got the rights, he's going to know what happened, and you're tied to me and I'm doing it, all of a sudden he's going to know who did it. Could have been simple like that. Could have been Mr. Wright that was passing it on to other people, and they said, we need to deal with this, we need to make it, but you're taking from his stuff, we're going to get busted for this.
I think it's good to just kind of go through these different theories and just go through and kind of play it out of, okay, well, it could be this, could be that, because that's when you really start breaking it down to not what it could be, but then to what factual data there is.
Tying directly to what he was doing. And then you have this guy that comes in and adds extra information, Mr. Wright, and then is warning you. Well, who knows?
It's like he was I felt like he was trying to throw me off track in one sense, obviously. And a lot of things that happened after, I felt like it was meant to throw me off track, to get me to focus, to look over here, not look at the man behind the curtain.
Yeah.
That was my feeling.
Sounded like a scare tactic, not a reality.
Yes, correct.
And he's got to be careful doing things like that. Speaking for people that he does not know, even if he's involved in interagency things. Even if they tell him to do that, they got to be careful they don't have him marked. Would not be a good thing for him. Especially if he is involved in something like this and has done anything. He's a loose end to them, possibly.
Right.
But, you know, and being that he's done something like that, drawing attention to himself, there's two doubles on him there. And if I were in his position, I wouldn't do anything like that. I wouldn't warn you off. I would just give data that would make it appear something else versus being a scare tactic heavy, which is what he was trying to come off as. If you're a Chihuahua, you don't try to act like a German Shepherd, is my motto. And I'm a Chihuahua. I'm not out there going, we're each protected by the Father to the extent that we give him the glory and that we subscribe to him. If we start acting like him, like we're the heavyweight, he'll bring a heavyweight in to show what heavyweight is. And I think that Mr. Wright may have had some intent in scaring you off. Did you ask him why he was doing it?
Yes, I did, and it was just a BS answer. I think it was like he was helping me. He was trying to make it seem like he was helping me, but as soon as he realized that I wasn't going to back down, I was thinking, okay, as soon as he realizes that, I'm going to see a flip of a switch. This guy's going to go from nice to being nasty, and that's exactly what happened.
And that's a ploy. They try the nice tack, then they go, now I'm serious. Don't do this. Or what will happen is what they're indicating. And
right.
Like I said, when somebody does that, either he has it or he doesn't. That's something for him to think about. If he has it, then if he makes a threat, generally they give an admonition with the threat. An admonition is a physical presence of somebody or something or somewhere that indicates my threat is real. And I don't get that from Sean Wright. I don't get that. And I've had people threaten me who did have the weight to do it. And you have to listen to those people and give them credit where credit is due. And I had two men that visited me, I told you about, from the government that said, we have a problem with you in your past. And I listened, and I gave them correct data, and then they left me alone. Because I'm not anti-government, but I am anti-evil in the government. I'm not against the NSA, but when they start doing things which are in opposition to the purpose they're there for, then they've got a problem. Then they have to worry about a lot more than poor little old me. And there's a lot of people in government that are watching them, the CIA, and they don't know who they are, but they're there. And they're ghosts, and they don't sit there and tell anybody. They don't do it because they're independents, but they'll click together occasionally. But those things they do not know. And the supporter of those is the one they don't want to face. And it's even Satan himself. Come on. And we know that the Father in heaven sets up governments, but people, use it to their own advantage at times and try to stop, revelation about something as simple as this little possible murder or suicide, and they want to keep it quiet, hush, hush. They have to understand there's something greater at work here than people. As we have to deal with principalities, powers, and darkness in high places, so do the darkness have to deal with the one who is over all the principalities, powers, and darkness in high places. They have to think in reverse a little bit sometimes and go, ooh, wait a minute, I too must be very cautious, because I could end up where I think I'm putting somebody else, Sean Wright or anybody. You've had threats before, I know, like that one. And where has it come to? Well, thankfully, prayerfully, and by the grace of the Most High, nothing has come of it. Now, when it comes to the point that the evildoers want to get rid of all Christians and all this investigation, they will come after us, and eventually they will succeed. They will remove us all. Then they'll think it's all happy and good. Unfortunately, that is when their defeat is most assured, in my opinion. But
Amen.
David Crowley, in my impression, didn't commit suicide. Basically, by the fact that his wife was shot twice, his daughter once. Now, how many times was he shot?
He was shot once. As far as, I mean, as far as they can tell, there's...
Yeah. So there wasn't a double shot with him. And the fact of the matter that his wife had 2 shots is, to me, evidence that, no, it wasn't the husband. If the husband wants to kill the wife, he gets her in a lone spot very gently, quietly, and then, boof, she doesn't know what hit her.
Yeah, she was shot left to right, back to front.
That doesn't indicate the husband did it. The husband would do it 1 shot without her knowing what was coming, out of respect. That's my wife. I don't want to shoot, unless they had a real big bad argument and he just blew up and then started shooting. And like I say, I don't see that in him, based on his demeanor at this point, that I can persist and look at. From
is it possible that he did shoot her from the back, right, back to front, and then she did not die from a hollow point bullet, which seems kind of crazy, and then he shot her a second time on the side?
Possibly, but I don't think, like I say, that he would do it that way, unless he was in a snapped mental state that he just cracked. And that can happen. And he just goes up and shoots her and goes, "Ah." And she's standing there and going, "What are you doing? Stop. What? Get me to a hospital." And goes, boom. I really don't see David Crowley as the threat here. The daughter was shot from behind at the right ear. His wife was shot in the back of the head and in the side. Somebody came in on the wife, and she turned around on the aim of it, and he shot her, get her attention, and finished her off. That to me sounds like somebody that stepped in and not the husband. And then, to make it look like the husband, they blow his brains out and drop the gun, but they just don't put it in the right spot. And they just kind of get out there and think it's there, that would indicate, but does not. Kind of like they're sloppy. This, to me, seems like a sloppy hit, in my opinion, that could have been the reality, versus David Crowley. I don't think he had anything to do with this, in my estimation. And that the person may have been a professional, but made it look sloppy for his purposes. So it didn't look like a professional hit. So you can go, well, this is not professional. Sometimes professionals do sloppy things just to throw the off. If it's professional, they know where to look, correct? If it is shaded a little bit, then it can't be definitely said it was a professional hit. So then, with Philip Marshall, I could say that was a professional hit. Based on what I saw, if it was done, headshots and disappear with the door open. Boom. How are you going to, and no prints, nothing but his, and it appears that it's him. Why was the back door open? Who knows. But that would appear to be a professional hit, in my opinion. But then, maybe not. But that would be an appearance, from my perspective. And then again, could the Philip Marshall case and this be tied together, in which it could be the same person? Well, if it's professionally done, and they don't have a whole list of hitmen. There's a few, very few, in my opinion. And if they want somebody hit, they pass it out and see who's the best qualified to nail it. And there's similarities between the Philip Marshall case and this one, in that the family is killed. The dog didn't die in this one, which is interesting. Maybe it was useful to leave the dog alive for purposes of helping cover the issue.
Pretty much. You can blame the dog for everything.
And it can look like, well, the dog takes care of some of the evidence. And so, was his food and water still in place? Did they look at that? Because if I was wanting that, I'd take away or I'd make it look like the food dish was empty and the water gone. Eventually that would happen anyway, and they wouldn't have to do anything. But they could just kind of empty the food away, empty the water. Nobody would know they had done that. And that dog would have gotten hungry quicker, and then, well, there's fresh meat on the floor. Based on the killer's thoughts on it.
Right.
But in the whole mess here, I think that the entity aspect, I think, was a reality, especially to Carmel and her daughter. David, it was a reality to him because he was aware of it. So the real aspect that comes to mind is like the Mothman thing. It appears and then trouble comes. And, you know, entities work with people. Definitely. Principalities, powers, and darkness in high places. And brings about these things. But who's in charge of that? The Father. We have to understand that. No, is he the father of the idea of killing innocent people? No. But we live in a world where evil does evil and he does good. And we are to represent the light and bring light to the evil, which you're making your effort to bring it to this situation. May the Father in heaven do that. Sean Wright is working to suppress what you're doing. I don't know why. Because he's of the darkness? Yeah, could be. Was he trying to protect you? Could be. Or is he in trouble himself? Could be. I'm not going to speak against Sean Wright and say, you're a dead man, what are you doing? But he should ask himself the question, when I make a threat, can I make it valid? Or is it invalidated if I am not truly able to engage and affect that which I have just spoken? If you speak a lie, that can come back and bite you. And that would be my perspective on anybody from his position. Because he must be in a position of, one, he's either tied in or he's untied, as we say. As I said, either tied in or oops, they're untied. I don't know which Mr. Wright is. And like I said, based on your faith and the fact that you're seeking truth, you know, no government is protected from judgment. Would you agree?
Mm-hmm.
And no person who threatens the people of the Father, if they're just doing their thing, exposing, without saying it's the government. It's not always the government. It's factions within it that are using power under cover of authority. They have to understand the reality is they can be hobbled or they can be removed themselves by things they can't even imagine. Not entities or spirits getting them or God's going to get them. It's just by their own actions and doing what they're doing, they put themselves in the position of being eliminated by their own error, if you follow what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's many that do that. And I've dealt with people in the military, and they say you have to keep it tight and right. If you start speculating or throwing your weight around, that weight comes right back at you, is what they said. And you got to go.
Well said.
Yep. And so, you know, be prayerful for Sean Wright. We are to pray for those who spitefully use us and threaten us with death, harm, and damnation. You know, because they're made in the Spirit's image of the Most High. So I pray for Sean Wright that peace be upon him, and if not, let it return to you and I. You know, we're not out to kill him. We're just out here in times forming opinions about things because we don't have many facts. And the facts we do have lead to suppositions that could be true. But the problem is what they want is they don't want us to bring up a supposition which is right on track and have that expanded by others, which they know that does happen. So I don't fear, you know, him. You know, I don't fear Satan, but I've dealt with things that, you know, bring me pause many times. And, you know, can Satan appear in various forms and scare the crap out of you? Oh, I'm sure he can. He's very subtle, and he doesn't do it a blaring in your face thing. He makes it in the shadows, something you see out of the corner of your eye, or something, and let your mind bring it to the fore. And we humans are so good at that, based on our fears or troubles. And blowing something out of proportion is a human normality, I think. And so we got to be careful here, even with supposing and looking at these facts that we do have, not to deduce something that, with all intents and purposes, is just not true. Evidence indicates 3 people died by one gun, which was not in a position indicating suicide. That's what I deduced, which then indicates, with other evidence that I see, that it was somebody else who made it to be like a suicide, but it doesn't really fit suicide. Because if David Crowley wanted them dead, he could have done it so much simpler, so much easier. And if you want to kill somebody, if you do it, you put your daughter to bed, or you come up behind her gently, hi honey, boom, dead. Oh, and the wife comes, oh, I saw that, boom, oh, and then shoots her. There's that scenario. You know, she sees him shoot their daughter, and then she goes, what are you doing? Shoots her, as you were saying, and then shoots her in the head and then kills himself. But again, the gun does not support that. The gun does not support that. Again, it falls to that evidence being where it is not possible that it is a suicide. Unless they come up with the magic, bullet theory like they did with Kennedy, which is ridiculous. So the reality is these people were murdered. And there needs to be an investigation as who benefited. Somebody in their project, a $33 million project, yeah, somebody wanted that. And I think that it comes from that angle and would need to be investigated to put that out. So somebody in that movie project had more into this, and they wanted David out of the way, in my opinion.
That could be, and that's what we're here. We're going to keep researching and keep, going down every avenue until we figure out what really happened with this case.
True, and they say that there was no forced entry. Doesn't mean it was somebody they knew always. People are able to get into houses without forcing it, especially professionals. Right. Professionals get in, and they watch to see the appropriate time to get in when there's little activity. And they can wait hours or days sometimes to get the right opportunity. They can be within the home, hidden, very carefully, and know when to act. Maybe that's what happened, and he got caught and had shot the girl, shot the wife, and David runs in there, he finishes her off and gets her. Hey, I don't know. There's, 1,000 different scenarios that could fit how it happened. But the one problem, it comes back to that gun laying on his left side behind him. Was it behind his left hand?
No, it was actually a little bit underneath his left hand. Now, David was also, his arms were spread out in a crucifix.
Oh,
so they were completely spread out. They were straight out, and the gun was a little bit south of his left hand.
That's
and his left hand, yeah, it's weird. If you want to see it, I can send you a picture of his left hand.
There's the key. Nobody who shoots himself falls like that.
Right, and on his left hand, there's nowhere that it looks like where maybe the dog might have moved the hand or stretched it out there, because we do have a couple images of the left hand, and it doesn't. You can totally tell there's no dog that has been on it.
Definitely, this is a murder. Already know the conclusion now. This was a murder. The bodies were staged or made to, and based on the lividity and pools of blood, they may have been killed somewhere else. But does it look like they were killed in place where their bodies fell?
Yeah. To me, yes. To other people, no.
What did other people's disagreement come from?
They think maybe they were killed somewhere else, maybe in some other room, and that's why there's not that much blood in that living room.
If there's not that much blood, if you blow somebody's head about, you're going to get a lot of blood. somebody, you blow their ear, a child, you're going to get a lot of blood. If there's not much blood, yeah, this might have been a hit carried out elsewhere and they're dropped in their home. How that would have worked would have been a lot of work and would have been very difficult to carry out. It would have to been done, in my opinion, in some other part of the house. Did they find any blood or indication of that in the house?
Not really. They found, I think, one little blood spot on the hallway, in the hallway wall. They found some, most of it was just found in the living room.
So they have a smudge of blood in the hallway.
Yes, there's one fingerprint, just one kind of fingerprint. So
that wasn't his or his family's. Okay.
I don't believe it was tied to him. I mean, it was obviously somebody's blood. I think it might have been I think all of the blood that was found in the house was mostly his wife's. Interesting.
And not much of his, though he had his head blown off.
Correct. And she did too. She did too. I mean, the way, when I first read how the bodies were found by the cops are saying both of their heads are missing. So it's
That's
not
different.
missing. Yeah.
That means the heads were cut off.
Yeah. Well, then I asked them. You know, we asked them were the heads found? Were these missing body parts found anywhere else? And the answer was no.
Yeah, there would have been bones from the arms and hands. If they didn't find them, that's an issue.
They found small bone pieces and skull pieces, stuff like that. So
what about the
maybe
arm?
That's what it was. No arm, no indication of that arm. I don't know. I mean, I don't know. It's crazy.
This is definitely smelling more and more like the police didn't know what happened, and they don't have an explanation, so they have to just come up with one. And
you're going down the rabbit hole.
Murder-suicide, let's close the book.
Yeah.
Because the indication is this is weird, and it smells like a professional hit that somebody wanted to tie it to Muslims. It's not tied to Muslims. It's farthest thing from me is that, and it's not suicide. So therefore, my conclusion, not that it's a government hit. That would be another good one for them to do. Point it to the government and make it a conspiracy thing. But I think this is really tied more and more to his filming. And that somebody in there, and if it is government, didn't want him going forward with certain information, or that there was other information in there, or that he was going to eventually put out that he had that nobody else did, that they wanted to prevent from going out. Did he lose any materials disappear?
Like what? Like
any of his film-based materials and investigations and research?
They got 12 terabytes of data that they went through. Didn't find anything, and all that was turned over to David Crowley's dad.
Okay.
Who then, I guess, so they used some of that for the Netflix film, and you know.
Right. So he didn't lose anything, and nothing was missing as far as they know that we are aware of.
True, and that's the best way to really say it, because we don't know what was in that house. We also don't know why there was a group of people that were looking in the house, that broke into the house a couple of days after these crimes happened. So you have that. I mean, we have a lot of stuff, and I think we should wrap this one up here. But I definitely think we should come back and we can talk more about this stuff, because this is just the tip of the iceberg with this.
And I think the break-in might have been tied to be sure they got everything. I think that was a rehash to go back and get something, maybe, because police watch a site that's been hit by a crime like this, and who's to say it wasn't the police that broke in? Well, we don't know that even. But the reality is, a break-in after a murder raises, especially within a couple of days, if that's correct, within 2 days after the murder, it may indicate something was there that they wanted to make sure didn't get noticed, possibly. So, yeah, interesting thought there. Wow. And that is one to pontificate on later. Is
absolutely
the blood smear and the print, and who David was. who David Crowley was. And what was he before he was married? What was he doing? Was his father in the military or in the government? Was his wife's? Or was he tied directly to any military or government-type institution with his filming? Those are all part of the thing to look at. And sometimes when you get into those things, you get into rabbit hole after rabbit hole, because sometimes people who are doing these types of documentaries and research don't tell everybody they're contacting and who they're getting data from. And if they're getting good data, it could be the kind of data that people in higher powers don't want out. So that's why I think in the film direction is a way to go with this, because it's the most tangible piece of data that indicates that somebody wouldn't want that out, for either one, we want it, or two, we don't want something about it to hit the videos and hit YouTube and the public. Wow, good subject tonight.
Yeah, that was great, man. Any final words? You want to close with the prayer, unless you want to say anything else?
I'll put some final words out, and then we're going to close. One, this is Greg Fernandez, Mind, Body, Soul Production. I'm Walter Bradley. My final concept here is that we don't know a lot, and a lot of this will fly by us and we'll never know. But there is one who does know, the Father in heaven. So, like Sean Wright threatening Greg, or anybody that threatens, these things we deal with daily. And we deal with principalities, powers, and darkness in high places. This is what it's really about. And we must keep that focus on the Father, not the principalities and powers and darkness and all this detritus around us. We want to bring light there. Sometimes they don't want it there, and they want to kill the people to stop it. Well, that won't stop the revelation from happening, and unfortunately the revelation will come, and the light will come, and you will be either with the light or you will be without the light. Which do you want? That's a question I ask you who suppressed the light and the truth. Think about that, whether you're Sean Right or Sean Wrong. Isn't that a question? Well, I'm going to close with prayer now and put it to you, Father. Heavenly Father, I thank you for Greg Fernandez. I thank you for this life, for as long as I live it. And Father, I just pray for all the family there and for us here to protect us and keep us to the time that we must go. If we go being crucified, so be it. But they cannot kill. You can't crucify the truth. You can crucify the bringers of it, but the truth still stands after you're gone. So we thank you, Father, for that, and we pray for your return soon to set things right that are wrong. We ask in your name and for your glory. Amen.